First and foremost, I am really appreciative of being asked to do this. It's not very often that I get an opportunity to stump for people, and in this particular case, I'm, again, greatly appreciative of it because not only do I know Tim, but I work with Tim. And if you folks know that for the last 9+ years, I've had this little radio show on ACN, American Christian Network, called Right Spokane Perspective. And for the last couple of years, Tim has been my co-host. So Tim and I have been talking about City of Spokane issues for the last couple of years, and he has been brought along, if you will. Everything that I engage in the city, Tim definitely has a hand of at least learning about it and commenting about it on the radio show. And by the way, a shameless plug, we are heard at 9 in the morning and 9 at night, Monday through Friday, via the trifecta of truth, and that would be 96.5 FM, AM 630, as well as live stream globally, www.acn.cc. All right, I am here to show a little bit of a contrast between the candidates. The candidate that we are celebrating with tonight and supporting tonight in Mr. Tim Benn, and his challenger, young lady who happens to be the current legislative assistant for Senator Andy Billig. You know what Mom used to say about Facebook when Facebook came out? If you don't want the whole world to know who you are and who you affiliate with, don't put it on Facebook. So, you know, Bernie shows up here in Spokane. He's stumping to be the president for the United States of Free. And here we have Tim's challenger. By the way, this happens to be Skylar Oberst, who is Karen Stratton, one of my council colleagues' legislative assistants. And this happens to be a young lady that works for the community colleges and whatnot. But there she is, Kate Berg. Great big old smile. Can I get the next slide, please? How about this? The man who created Rocket Man. Literally, folks, Bill Clinton. He's the guy that put Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un on the map and has put North Korea in a very precarious situation globally in the same manner that Obama did with Iran. Oh, don't worry about it. We've got all of our allies and our United States security inspectors that are going to be checking us out, and we're going to make the world safe. Give me a break. Seems like we're on the verge. But there you go, Tim's opponent. Next slide, please. Oh boy, Mr. Global Warming himself. Again, it's about affiliations, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I really loved what Penny had to say with regard to We Believe, We Vote and the group that came together, because these folks are really down to earth. They look at candidates, biblical worldview on the Constitution, the United States of America. They're looking at character and things like that. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to representing constituents, character matters and character counts. Could I get the next slide, please? Fundraising over in Seattle. Okay, don't think that Kate doesn't, that she's not going to be bringing Seattle policies to Spokane. Here she is, Seattle supporting Spokane. Big old party for Kate Burke. Okay, again, just to give you a little bit of an idea of the affiliations and the character of whom it is that you have a choice. To me, the choice is clear. You cast a vote for Tim Benn. No undervotes, ladies and gentlemen. You got to cast a vote for Tim Benn. Next slide, please. Oh boy, you guys know this guy. Former council member John Snyder, father of the Monroe Street Road Diet, father of the Crestline Road Diet, and father of Spokane City's bicycle lanes. Oh geez, there's Tim's opponent right there. Again, affiliations, ladies and gentlemen. Next slide, please. Everybody recognize this young lady here? Sandinista Lisa Brown. Okay. Oh, there's Tim's opponent. It is absolutely amazing to me the people that Kate Burke has aligned herself with. Absolutely. And here, right off of her Facebook, I'm glad to have met you on Saturday when you knocked on my door. Is purple your color, or are you drawing on Rogers High School? Well, folks, the answer is pretty simple. She's drawing on Rogers High School. That school happens to be right in the heart of the district for sure. Next slide, please. Oh boy, you guys are going to love this. This is right off of Kate's Facebook. Hey you, stop asking questions or else we'll permanently detain you. Does that kind of give you a little bit of a clue as to the philosophy that Tim's opponent has got? Pretty darn scary, isn't it? Next slide, please. There you are. You got a guy, you got an opportunity, you have a choice, and it's a good choice. It's a great choice. Again, folks, for the last handful of years that I've worked with and associated with Tim Benn, this guy is nose to the grindstone. He is blue collar. He is Hilliard. He is the city of Spokane, folks. He is a genuine guy. He's a provider for his family. And boy, I'll tell you, he's raised up or is raising up a couple of great kids. He's had an opportunity. Oh, you bet. He's had an opportunity to even engage in the exchange student program. So not only is he taking care of his own kids, and of course the daycare, he's taking care of other people's kids, and he's taking care of kids from people who live in foreign countries. Yo, dude. That's right, yo, dude. All right, next slide. Couple of, just a small handful of the folks that are previously elected officials, current elected officials that endorsed Tim. And if you don't see somebody, an elected official or a former elected official's name on there, I'm sure that all you got to do is tap them on the shoulder and ask them the question and they'll give you the answer. The answer is Tim Benn, for sure. All right, I think we're getting down to the part here in this presentation where I'm going to go ahead and get ready to hand it off to our buddy Tim. But before we do that, can we go ahead and roll the most recent commercial video that we've got for Tim?
It looks like John left his...
What are your neighbors saying about Tim Benn?
I think it's important to have someone like Tim Benn on City Council because he's one of us. He was born here, raised here, he lives here. And I think that's what we really need is people connected to our communities, making decisions that affect the communities.
I trust him. He listens. He cares about the people here.
I support him because he has the interests of me and my neighbors at heart, and he is really working hard to try to make this a better place for us to live.
Tim is down to earth, and he knows what we need. It's not about politics. It's about what's right.
We need more people like him to hold those positions, to hold others accountable so that we're heard and that we have a voice.
As a lifelong resident in Northeast Spokane, I'm running for city council. We need a city council that listens to the citizens and is responsive to the needs of the taxpayers. I'm Tim Benn, and I'm asking for your vote.
Paid for by citizens to elect Tim Benn.
And I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, that video basically says it all with regard to Tim's character, with regard to Tim's approach, and with regard to what you can expect when Tim gets elected as the next city council member in the city of Spokane. So without further ado, please welcome Tim Benn.
Thank you very much. That video almost made me cry with those families because I'm not used to being talked about in that kind of light because I go down to City Hall sometimes, you know. So it's interesting all the opportunities we have in Spokane that could pass us by. And when I go around to the communities like Denny was the last man on there, and he's right. I do know what we need. And the reason why is because I'm from here, I've lived here. We've been in this community for a couple decades serving families. We know where the people are at. We've got an enormous opportunity with the north-south economic corridor. And if Spokane doesn't realize that, it's going to be the way that Spokane gets passed by. And we can't allow that. We need that to be a piece of infrastructure that's going to help our economy and bring better jobs to Spokane. And all these families that are on this video, at one time or another, my wife and I have worked with their children, and what kind of future are we leaving them when it comes to jobs and public safety, property crime, drug abuse, the homeless problems? We have to have solutions. So I want to thank John for doing the audio here, and I'll tell you, I've had so many debates. It's amazing. I'm hearing that the Spokane Valley is going to have their first debate next week. Like, wow, I've already had like 13. You know, it's amazing how many people are paying attention to City Council. Just this last week, I had a debate that was an hour and 45 minutes long with just myself and my opponent. And I'll tell you what it did for me. It's given me a drive. I'm going to be doorbelling hours upon hours every single day. You're all welcome to give me a call and come help if you like to put on your sneakers and go knock on doors, because my opponent scared me. She didn't answer a single question, and the only one that she did, it violated property rights for homeowners. So I want to thank John for being here, Ray for doing the video, got a sound guy here, Dave, he did a great job on the background sound, and my wife for putting together the presentation between my wife and Mike. This is a community effort. No candidate does it on their own. So I need all your help, your friends' help, get your neighbors out there, turn them out to vote, get a yard sign. One more thing I need you to do so that we don't get in trouble with Glenn Morgan and Washington Public Disclosure Commission is on the tables there is a sign-in sheet. So I need your name on the sign-in sheet so that I can put down that you paid for this event. So if you could please do that at some point in the event, that would be great. And at this point in time, yes, need your address on there as well. And before you go home, before the event's over, there's sign-in sheets outside if you want to sign up for sign waving, door knocking. I need all the support I can get. And I've already wore out a couple pairs of tennis shoes. I just got a new pair. So I'm looking forward to wearing them out. Now, I recommend if you are going to come doorbell more than a couple of days, definitely get the shoes that have the memory foam, because it helps. So at this point in time,
Can I please cue the introductory music?
let's do it.
All right, let's go. Hit it, John. That's what we're talking about.
The generators are cranked up, and we're ready. Broadcasting from the Liberty Command Center at the super-secret, undisclosed location deep in the heart of the mountains somewhere in eastern Washington. The Rick Rydell radio program is now on the air.
Yeah, now, what I got to say is he doesn't need an introduction. He doesn't need an introduction because he already has one, and we got a friend down at KXLY that gave me some sound, Mr. Pat Schilling, so I'm sure Pat misses Rick as well, so I'm going to hand this off.
Thank you. It doesn't have to be hard to understand. It doesn't take much of an explanation. Those are other ways of saying these truths are self-evident. They don't need to be explained. That when they found this nation, that this state is named after one of our greatest statesmen ever in George Washington. When they named this nation and they declared it, they said these truths are so in your face we don't have to explain it. That all men and women, just don't want to get sideways there, are created equal in the eyes of the law under the way the government looks at people. Now, are we all created even? Are we all created equal? Absolutely not. There are some of us smarter and some of us that don't really have much intelligence. Look at me and Ben Stuckert, for example. Thank you. But the government has to write laws that treat everyone equal, and it's not hard to understand. So I don't understand why our city council has such a hard time getting this. That's what government is there for. And if you've listened to my radio show, I always go back to one thing. It was probably plagiarism by Thomas Jefferson from a guy named John Locke, who was one of the, in the Scottish Enlightenment after the Magna Carta, when this idea of self-governance was starting to form itself. John Locke wrote that, that you are endowed with certain unalienable rights, and those rights are granted to you by your Creator. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. When I say that to a liberal, they go, well, I don't have the Constitution in front of me. I say, well, that's actually from the Declaration. It's not the Constitution, but I don't have one in front of me either. But it's the most famous sentence in the world, and what it means, and I say it slowly and in reverse for liberals because they have a hard time understanding it. We hide them by putting them in documents for them. But it means that we give our power, we as the sovereign citizen, to our elected officials so they can justly secure the rights that were granted to us at our birth by God. And that alone is the role of government. You can amen that. I don't mind that at all. It's not that hard to understand. So we have a new thing that has happened, and it's happened in our lifetime, and I think we might be responsible for it, and it's kind of at the crux of what poor Mike has to fight all the time, because there is a mindset out there that doesn't serve God that gave us our rights. It serves a new God, and that new God is this thing called the environment. It's the Gaia of the earth. And it has infiltrated the government that is supposed to be securing and maintaining our rights. They're not trying to secure and maintain our rights. They're trying to serve this new God. How many know who Rachel Carson is? Anybody know the name Rachel? Obviously, some people have read a little bit. Rachel was a very famous author. She wrote a lot of novels back in the 50s. Somewhere around, I think, September 27th, 1962, she wrote a book called The Silent Spring. Silent Spring was a pack of lies about things like DDT. I remember, by the way, I am Hilliard. I went to Rogers High and am proud to be Hilliard. Thank you. I remember walking behind the truck that sprayed the DDT and smelling the sweet smell and playing it with my friends. And I know Ben Stuckert would see what it did to mental health there? Yeah, right. But anyway, so the Silent Spring started a populism movement, and populism is democracy at its worst, because populism grabs the attention, it grabs the emotions, and people do irrational things with populism. And so this began with Rachel's book, The Silent Spring. Out of it came the night, after all the wars we saw on television about DDT and how it was causing children to be born with 3 toes or whatever it was. Some of them actually born Democrat. Finally, in 1969, Congress had passed the Environmental Policy Act of 1969, which then became NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Action. And this is a brand new field at the time that they're kind of still trying to define, called ecology. And they really still can't define exactly what it is. Oddly enough, we have a Department of Ecology. They really can't define what they do, except that they can say you can't drill a well on your own private property. And thanks to our United States Senator for that one, when she was in the, Maria Cantwell, in 1990, when she was in the legislature, she helped ushered in that Growth Management Act, which led to the Hearst decision, and now people can't drive a well. But it all goes back to this worshiping of this God, because our God isn't good enough. The environment is more important. And the environment is what has to be served. And so fast forward a little bit and we go through all the different environmental acts. We've got CERCLA, the Comprehensive Environmental Response, let me see if I can get it right, Response, Compensation and Liabilities Act. We've got RCRA, the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. We've got SARA, the Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act. I mean, it's layer upon layer upon layer of these regulations that do one thing and one thing only, and it's control people. And the Hearst decision is a perfect example of it. So then comes along this new part of this movement as we move into the 90s, when all of a sudden the thing called smart growth comes around. You guys have been dealing with smart growth on the city council, haven't you? And smart growth is a way, you can't trust people. You can't trust communities to grow on their own. No, the government knows better. And they need to control what kind of growth comes along. Why, just if there's a subdivision on the out in Airway Heights that wants to, come on, we can't just let them tap into city water. We can't let people do that because they'll have this thing called sprawl. Sprawl. It's an ugly word, but what sprawl is families living in homes with yards. Pretty ugly sight, isn't it? Families living in homes with yards. Well, according to this new God, that's not what people want. Did you know that? People don't want to live in homes in yards. They want to live in high-density housing above the shop where they work so they don't have an automobile. Because they won't need an automobile because everything will be right there for them. And the only time they'll need to use any kind of transportation is public transportation because we can fund that. And they can ride their bikes. Yes. Well, if you notice, the smoothest asphalt in town is all the bike lanes because they're never used, right?
Well, no, the snow goes there in the winter.
Oh yeah, well, of course, because nobody needs to get anywhere during the winter. No, when this new God that is served is only served on sunny 70-degree days. Because obviously there's no other weather. It goes back to when it really started making its inroads, and I gave City Council President Joe, I am not a communist shogun, a new nickname, because when he passed one of the big laws that we have in Spokane, because of the City Council serving this new God, complete streets. And I remember watching him smack the gavel with glee and a boastful voice saying, "We have broken the Americans' addiction to the automobile. We've passed complete streets." Pretty damn powerful from the dais at the City Council. You can break an entire American addiction to automobiles, but by God, Joe did it. Then he called my radio show, and someone had told him that I called him a communist. Well, I asked him, I said, well, Joe, was that a Democrat? He said, I'm not playing this game, Rick. So, okay, well, was it a Democrat that said it? Well, it was my sister. I go, well, probably it was a Democrat then. And he said, I want you to know I fought those communists in Vietnam. And I said, and I really appreciate your service. I really do. And he says, I'm not going to take this crap. And I said, well, I never called you a communist, Joe. And he hung up on me. I said, I might have called you a fascist or a socialist, but never a communist. So from that moment on, he's been Joe, I am not a communist shogun, but he's never called me again. For some reason. I don't know why. This new God is infiltrated our United States Congress. It's infiltrated our legislature. My God, it owns this governor. And it almost has taken over the city council. Except for poor Mr. Fagan over here. He's like the only one, unless we can get Tim on there, he's the only one who understands it's not that hard to understand that these truths are self-evident, that the government is there to secure and maintain our individual rights, not serve the Gaia of the earth, not serve a collective. The collective, that's what communism is. You serve the collective rather than the individual. It's just not that hard. So with that being said, I think that as a young man growing up in Spokane, I used to brag about this when I moved to other places, that there was Liberty Avenue, there was Liberty Lake, the Liberty Hotel on North Division. The word liberty was everywhere when I was a kid. When I was a kid at the airport here, there was the Declaration of Independence, there was the Constitution of the United States, and there was the Bill of Rights. Those things aren't there anymore. I don't know when they went away. But I think that's when old Spokane went away and this new God came into being and has infiltrated our city council. I think we're at a critical place in Spokane's history. I think Seattle's gone. I don't think there's anything we can do to help them. They outdid Portland, and I mean, it's pretty bad. It's so bad that if you have a bunch of super environmentalist wacko liberals sitting in Portland, and they turn around and they see somebody from Seattle, they come, they go, now that's an environmental nut job. That's how bad it is. But Spokane, I think, is at that critical juncture. I think if we don't make some moves very, very soon, we're going to lose Spokane. And I don't want to lose my childhood home. I don't want to lose the liberty that I grew up in this part of the country. Understanding that it's not that hard to understand. It is self-evident that this government, no matter whether it's a national government, which I think is doing pretty damn good, by the way, right now. I really like what our nation is doing. Did everybody see that speech to the UN today? Huh? I can't tell you, it's been since the 80s that I felt this good about this country. And I'm feeling better about it now than I did in the 80s. Because that speech, that would have put Reagan to shame today. But that's how fast an election can turn things. Elections have consequences. And if we just get Tim on the city council now, there's 2 voices. We just get one more, then there's 3. We get one more, we've got 4.
We can do it.
We can do it. If we actually got a really good mayor to help these guys on the city council, it could turn around. It could become Spokane again. We could, pardon me, I'll steal the phrase, we could make Spokane great again. So what can you do? I mean, you're the choir. You're here supporting Ben, and I appreciate that. And there's an envelope at your desk. And if you could, what's the limit, $1,000? Think of it as an investment. Think of it as a tithing. Think about it as a tithing to our God, not that God. However much you can give, that's going to help get this word out to more people, that it's not that hard to understand, that these truths are self-evident, that more than one man can sit on the council and understand what this nation is about. That we can have 2, and 2 can become 4, and 4 could, God bless it, become 6 one day, and then with the mayor, it would be unstoppable. And it can happen, but we have to show up. Stephanie and I, when she took over as the chair of the Republican Party, we went through numbers and we looked at the state of Washington, and Stephanie's saying, my God, if we just increase the vote by how much? 4%. 4%, we could win the state. We're not talking about winning the state. We're not talking about beating King County. We're just talking about beating downtown Spokane and the people that don't work that are looking for Bernie Sanders handouts. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is give as much as you can tonight, but also talk to your friends, make them commit to filling out that ballot. It's not going to take that much to win. How many votes win a city council district?
In this district,
yeah,
there's 33,000 voters, and typically we only get 20 to 30% voter turnout.
Yeah. You could be 4,000? 4,000 could win this thing? Could you get 4,000 people to say, it's not that hard to understand, that these truths are self-evident? Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, get them to commit. Give what you can, because this is going to get him out there. It's going to get his name out there. If you can put on your tennis shoes and go door knock talk about how easy it is to turn a city around, because right now this city council is worshiping the Gaia of the earth. They're channeling all their money downtown because that's where they say the millennials want to live. They're taking all the transportation dollars, putting it on bicycles because they don't want you in your car. They want you in mass transit. They're choking down our streets, making it to where at 5 o'clock, if your father's on the other side of that choked down street and he has a heart attack, that ambulance isn't getting through because there's going to be a bus in the middle lane. Everybody's going to be jammed over there. And when seconds matter, that's when smart streets are at their finest. And you know, maybe the ambulance will go on a bicycle. Maybe they'll have a little cart behind. They can haul Dad up to Sacred Heart. Bicycle built for two. You know, and y'all know I had a heart attack like 2 years ago, right? Yeah, I couldn't ride a bicycle. I ended up driving myself to the hospital. But I couldn't do that with the choked down street. So thank you for having me out tonight. Tim, thank you, sir. Mike's good. Thank you. I miss being here. I've got some big things ahead of me. I'll let you know when I can. But if those don't come to fruition, KXLY is pretty much begging me to come back. And I told them I probably would. So anyway, give freely, no donation too large, no message to your friends too much. You can't tell enough people about. Vote Tim Benn and take Spokane back. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, thank you all again for coming, and Rick Rydell for taking the long drive from the Liberty Command Center. Appreciate him coming here, and I didn't see any firearms, so we're not getting a shooting contest tonight? Not yet. Not yet. Okay, we'll do that in the next event, maybe. Next event. So as Mike came up, I didn't get to explain to you, and Rick really explained it well with the Gaia of the Earth and my opponent. The only question in that hour and 45-minute debate that she answered was that people don't need homes. We just need bike lanes, buses, and apartments. Oddly enough, though, when she moved into the district a year and a half ago just to run for the seat, she moved into a house. She moved into a house. So the problem that we see with this city council, they want us all to live in apartments and not drive cars, but what do they have? They have houses and they have cars. It's an elitist mentality, and I believe in the freedom for all the children that use it, especially these two, those are my kids, for all the children that are born, unborn, all the children that came out to support me here and the families, they have the right to own a home if that's what they so choose. They can have an apartment too, but let the free markets do it, and we need a city council that's not going to force us into the lifestyle that they want. We can secure those freedoms and follow that Constitution.
Oh, hey, Tim, how about explain her disdain for veterans and veteran housing?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of discussion around housing. I don't know if you know, but the city of Spokane actually has voted to deny water permits to charge people to hook up to city water, people that are willing to pay for city water. Lots of developments have been turned down, including one right down the hill here for right now. So we lack housing. We have less than 1% availability for single-family homes in Spokane. People are begging for homes for their families. Because, of course, the millennials don't want houses. But wait a minute. Then they get older, they get out of college, they meet a guy, they meet a girl. We know what happens from there. So they want houses. While this discussion at the debate was going on, and a guy, Fred, actually asked the question because she said we didn't need houses. He said, what do you tell the veteran, the Iraq veteran that joined the military to secure his American dream, and he moves back to his hometown Spokane? What do you tell him when he wants to buy a house? And hour and 45 minutes, we had as much time as we wanted to answer questions, 5 minutes, and her only response to that question, what do you tell that veteran when he wants a house? She says, I'll thank him for his service. And that was it. So what happened after that, it was really interesting because we can turn liberals. So if you see voter turnout and you see what's going on in the city of Spokane, I have just about as many signs in Democrat yards as I do Republican yards. So we're doing this for the kids, remember? Because if they don't have constitutional rights, yeah, they need a clean environment, but we're conservatives, so we conserve. So we're doing it for the kids. When we have these discussions about freedom, everyone wants freedom. So liberals may not be the enemy. It might be leftists, it might be progressives, people with agendas, but there's a lot of liberals out there. In fact, when it comes to gun rights and freedom, I'm pretty liberal, right? Because I think that you should have all the freedom in the world. The Second Amendment's all you need, right? Is that liberal? What's liberal? Let's define this, because what's happened is that Republicans say that the Democrats define them. But guess what? An ideology is defining everyone. So what is liberal? I hope that when you open up those envelopes and you plan to donate to my campaign, that you're very liberal, right? You're just not doing it with someone else's money, right? So, yes, classic liberal. So thank you again for coming. Please, please, please help me make sure that we get these people a future and that my opponent doesn't win, because that's why I need to win now. It's not just for the kids or for the future. I can't let that kind of ideology run and represent all the children that I've worked with. This is my opponent. Very active politically. So it's important that we get more people to step up to run, because right now I'm running for office and I plan to win with your help. And then the next campaign is me making sure we have more candidates up in 2 years to get the city council back. Thank you. Spend as much time as you want. I think there's still extra food in there. Yes, plenty of food. So eat, drink, and be merry.
And before we get done yakking for the evening, I definitely want to recognize a couple of folks here. Jennifer Thomas, you still with us? Oh, bummer. Anyway, we had Jennifer Thomas with us. She's a candidate for Spokane School District 81 School Board. Definitely hoping and praying for some luck in her race. John Ahern, former state representative out of the 6th District. And our county treasurer, Rob Chase. All right, we got Stephanie Cates, our chairwoman here, Spokane County GOP. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you know, Tim definitely needs your help. We know that we're speaking to the choir here tonight. Like he said, you know, when you sit down and you make that decision, what it is that you're going to do to help Tim out, please do so as liberal as you possibly can, because it does take money to get that message out. Believe me, we are working really, really hard behind the scenes. We're lining up all of the dominoes, all of the big players. I just got done meeting with Mayor Condon a couple of days ago, and we've got some good things happening behind the scenes. So with that said, again, we really, really appreciate everybody's... Yes.